Mike Maggio was a 2020 nominee for the Virginia Poet Laureate. He's published fiction, poetry, and reviews, Arabic translations in journals and anthologies in the United States and abroad. His work has appeared in such places as Phoebe, the Potomac Review, Pleiades, Black Bear Review, Washington Independent Review of Books, and in several anthologies. He's the author of Your Secret is Safe with Me, an audio collection of poems from Black Bear Publications. The book Oranges from Palestine and Other Poems from Mardi Gras Press, and two collections of short fiction, Sifting Through the Madness, and The Keepers. He's been very active as a gadfly in the Washington, D.C. area, and he's run from his website an annual event called 30 times 30. He does this during the National Poetry Month, April, and he features poems by 30 poets, one each day. He's also done a radio program with these poets. He responds to social injustices very readily, and he's much concerned with the issue of global warming. For example, in a recent poem from his most recent collection, there's the poem Low on Water, which I'll quote briefly. Wishful, the industrial glass wilted. No water, no sun, no powerful radiation rays, no epic nervous clouds of sort, the near-death experience, no waifs, a morsel of withered land, an iguana, a rubber band and flesh, a dish, a screw, a paperclip, an arid crack of soil, 112 degrees, and let's welcome Mike Maggio.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you, Shada, for your wonderful reading, which I really enjoyed. I'm very happy to be here. First time actually it's the second time in Michigan. First time was actually in Michigan. This time it's virtual. I'm going to read, that poem is from my new book, which is called Let's Call It Paradise, which this is what it looks like. I don't know how well you can see it, but, and I'm showing you this because I want to give you a grounding in what this book is about before I read from it. So I wanted to look at our society, or society in general, through the lens of consumerism. And so how I did that is by going around and collecting or scouring through magazines, through books, through spam messages, through pieces of paper I found in my pocket, through all kinds of text. And so this book is mainly a book of collage poems and visual poems. They're not all collage and they're not all visual. There are some that are composed in the typical way that one composes poetry, but the majority of them are collage poems, and they do look at society through this lens of consumerism. I wanted to say one other thing, and it just slipped my mind, but it will come back and I will say it. So I'm going to read, and I'll try to maybe give you a little background on each one of how the collage came in, because I did a workshop a couple of weeks ago, and that seemed to really ground people into this. Oh, the other thing I was going to say is that I've taken every rule in the English language and broken it. And throughout this book. So lexical, grammatical, syntactical, typographical, you name it, I've broken it. But not just to break it, you know, you do that because for reasons. And so a lot of the poems in the book actually do not come across verbally or orally, especially the visual ones. So I'm going to try to read the ones that, you know, make sense in an oral presentation. The first poem is the introduction to the book. It's called Siren Song, and I'm sure you're all familiar with the Greek sirens. So keep that in mind because that's important for this poem. The other thing is you will automatically recognize immediately T.S. Eliot. So, you know, that's part of the collage here. Oh, and by the way, there is at the back of this book a sources list. So, you know, anybody who reads this wants to know where this the text comes from, it's there. That's my way of avoiding plagiarism, right? So, Siren Song. Come, let us go now to a place beyond dreams. Let us arise and go now through the fond, murmuring streets, to the blind, stuttering boulevards, where siren song stills the air, where the minute's wheels wend our way to that elusive, rapturous bliss. Let us rush now, you and I, like the honeybee to its hive, to the merry, manic marmalade malls, to the towering halls of dithering tongues, to the glittering temples that mesmerize all, where those who seek know not what they crave, yet surrender to pipe and drum and sweet serenade. There, in short shrift, shall we find our solace. There, cast-offs to shores of grief and joy, like ghost waves dashed upon rock, will drift past glimmering galleons, covet the treasures of shipwrecked men, grope for beads, for baubles and gems, while all the while we sink and swim, swim and sink, and the siren song sweetly scuttles our unsolaced souls. Come quickly now, submit at once to this hasty urge. Not greed nor growl shall accept one dram, nor glass render reason, nor brass surrender seasons. We cannot escape. Let gold and silver release their grasp, and jewels their hapless, jaded clasp. Yet snow shall not discharge, nor rain postpone the swift completion of our most sacred rounds. Hurry now, rise up, let serendipity trumpet the way. Let us in full fanfare not delay. Let desire draw us fast from these transient, abandoned alleys to the splendid golden valleys where tree and grass defy the sky, where silken flowers in concrete lie. Let spouse nor child obstruct the way. The time has come to submit and pay. So you'll notice there's a kind of formality to this poem, which does not go through the rest of the book. It's the way it came out, it's the way I wanted it, and I thought it was a really good way to introduce what's going on in the rest of the book. There's a lot of rhyme. I don't normally work with rhyme. I'm known as the rhyme hater in Washington, D.C. But there is another poem I'm going to read a little bit later, which is totally rhymed. But let me go on to the next one. Now, this next poem I'm going to read is actually not a collage poem. It's a poem I wrote quite a number of years ago. It's called Epiphany. And there's also a lot of religious imagery going through this book, which somehow came through. And so I ended up titling sections like, there's a section called the epistles. And those basically are poems based on spam messages. But this is called Epiphany. Every day she prayed to the TV. Please let the hostages come home. Please give me guidance in these uncertain days. Please let there be rain. One stormy night, she lit an expensive candle and humbly placed it on her living room altar. The prophets are alive, she rejoiced, and she offered thanks from one to infinity. And sticking with the religious theme, this is a very old poem. Most of this book was written as a concept, so it was written basically as a whole. But I ended up pulling out some poems from the past that I thought fit in well. This is a poem I wrote back in the 80s. And it's called A Guide to the Signposts in the Garden of Eden. 1, you are now entering the Garden of Eden. Fig leaves required past this point. 2, the management reserves the right to refuse admission to anyone. 3, Garden of Eden apples may be unsuitable for young children. Parental discretion is advised. 4, warning, the tree of knowledge may be hazardous to your health. Pick at your own risk. 5, please do not feed or annoy the snakes. 6, only you can prevent hellfire. 7, Adam and Eve slept here. 8, create your own original sin. For more information, call 1-800-666-EDEN. 9, the management is not responsible for lost souls. 10, you are now leaving the Garden of Eden. We hope you have enjoyed your visit. Steep descent ahead. Please watch your step as you exit. So a lot of humor in this book, but not all humorous. This one is not really that humorous. It's called His or Her Story, his/her story, her story. I tried to make history by using her. So it's, history, her story, but it's his, her story. And this is made up partly of phrases I took from advertisements in magazines, but not all of it is like that. And by the way, when I do these collage things, I don't know how many of you have done collage, but it's not just taking phrases from different sources and putting them together. You're actually adding your own words into the mix. So, and your own, style. So these things kind of take on a life of their own. Anyhow, her story. Let's face it, history wasn't made in a rearview mirror. For example, husbands, kids, nail polish, shoes. Statistically, you'll need to go back twice, as a matter of fact. So we've made it easier. We've made it bigger, better, more memorable, completely satisfactory. Now thicker, now stronger, now longer lasting, to deliver the desired results. To be smoother, more titillating, most confidential. To enhance the desired fragrance, to keep one of your hottest body parts smelling fresh, to love in New York without that hot garbage smell, to be, which is to and the letter B, to be or not to be. Let's face it, her story wasn't made in a stained glass window. So put sex on your to-do list. Seduction guaranteed. Try it on us to receive the following benefits: specialized consequences, the truth customized for you. So give it a shot, because love is a terrible thing to waste. Oh, here's another fun one. Again, a lot of this is coming from phrases I took out of ads in magazines. And those magazines were things like Vogue and Marie Claire and People and stuff like that. Although I used other things. I think I used Smithsonian at one point. This is called That Is, the Question. That is the question. Are you searching to look pretty? Have you seen Sally? The one-stroke pretty lashes, the slender, curly, bold look. No top coat, no feathering, no fading, just sky-high high heels. She's the goddess of touch. She's the master of color, of flash and shine. A woman of seismic shifts. She's the personal crossover. Infallible, inflatable, unfathomable. Finally, with just a stroke of the secret code of women. Just flick a switch and upload your look. You can choose from thin, pregnant, petite, tall. For romance, for the ultimate touch, without a smudge or a smear. So Scott, stop staring at your shoes and get started. After all, there's nothing more beautiful than a woman. And this next one is no, I'm not going to read that one. I will read this one. This is the poem that I had a fight with because it wanted to rhyme, and I didn't want it to rhyme. And I finally gave up and said, well, if you want to rhyme, go ahead. And so it's called Hair. And again, this is most of this is coming from ads in the magazines. There are two hair products in this poem. One is called Simply Bare, and the other one is called Matte Lumiere, which I've turned into a person. Hair. Let's talk about hair. 15-hour wear, without a tussle or tear. Sometimes you just don't spare. Light and dreamy as air, through rain, sweat, and glare, even through your wildest affairs, some things you just don't share. Time to remove the nair in downtown Buenos Aires. It's simply bare, right straight through that frizzed up scare. So please don't stop and stare, or curl up, or otherwise care. It's nothing more than Matte Lumiere getting down here in Times Square. So I do have kind of a love poem. Thank you. It's not really a love poem. I guess it's a kind of a, well, I'll tell you how I put it together. It's called Stir-Fried Breadcrumbs. Stir-Fried Breadcrumbs. And basically what I did is I took some personal ads that I found on the internet. I took a recipe and I took actually a shopping list I had in my pocket. And I collaged it all together. It's kind of a love poem. It's about some guy that's trying to make up with his girlfriend that's left him, I guess. And it's called Stir-Fried Breadcrumbs. I kept asking myself, should I really do this? Stir-fry breadcrumbs in a skillet for 15 minutes? After all, I'm warm and sensitive, and besides, without your minced words, well, I need someone to raise the heat a little, someone random and spontaneous and easy to get along with. So on Saturday morning, after waking up dead, I went to the store. Now, as you know, life is short, so I purchased 8 pounds of ground beef, 11 pounds of lamb cubes, and 18 pounds of whole turkey. When I returned home, it was 10 o'clock. I could tell because I'm a good listener. So after marinating all day, I figured, why not give this a try? So at exactly 5 p.m. on January 29th, 2006, in the year of our discord, I immediately set the meat aside and began adding oil to the wok. I stir-fried a gaggle of garlic cloves. Every now and then I would add onions, shallots, parsley, sage, rosemary, thyme, anything I could find just to show I can be a true friend. Then I remembered your reserved brown eyes, your easy frame, and your 50 pairs of sexy shoes, and I knew it was time to add the breadcrumbs. Well, you know, I struggle with this town, and women really are a different breed of person. My job keeps me busy, and I'm always sitting in traffic. I just like to be with someone who is non-judgmental, translucent, someone I can love and figure out and not just strain off and set aside as optional. So there you have it, the encapsulation of my existence. One leftover tablespoon of tomato paste, a pan full of burnt breadcrumbs, and a missing sprig of coriander leaves. Now, what do you say? Let's lower the heat and simmer for a while. And if you still like to laugh and eat and find my ingredients suitable to your taste, come on back and let's see what happens. Thank you. So you see, this collage stuff can be lots of fun. I'll read a couple of more. This is a kind of a one that I like. It's called In Vogue, and it's called In Vogue because it was in vogue in the magazine Vogue. So In Vogue. Her scandalous past was revealed, cheating at last again just weeks after completing sex rehab. The chemistry took a private turn, a short jump, landing her into a hornet's nest of hominid hanky-panky. I have come to treat this like an elusive family member, she said. Here I am, a woman, but not the right kind, affected by obesity, every organ impacted by obesity, a double standard approved by right-wing extremists, imprimated by right-wing extremists. So she took to Twitter. She cradled an adorable baby while canoeing. She hung unflinchingly with a handsome blonde-haired man, huge, brave, not your typical scribble-scrabble, not your usual mishmash. It was no ordinary family outing. There was the customary dilation. There were feats of unbridled abortion. There was contraction and extraction, and through it all a relationship that appeared and disappeared, which leads me to my impoverished shape, my naked heart, my 25-year-old matter of sacred amusement. We don't need more bakeries. We don't need more bread and pastry. We don't need more mini burgers and galas galore. We need soup. We need organic seasonal foods. We need bowls of raisins seasoned with recycled honey. We need a Vogue moment in which to advocate a word for evaluating treatment. So this next one I'm going to read. I don't know how many of you are linguists and would know what a glottal stop is, but basically a glottal stop is if you say the word button, obviously the word button is spelled with two T's, right? And if you were in England, you would probably say button. But here in America, we change the two T's and it becomes a glottal stop. So you're using your glottis to produce the sound. And so you have button, you know, it's there. So anyhow, I say that because this is called glottal stop poem, and I want people to know what a glottal stop is. And basically, if you were to pronounce any vowel as a vowel, like A, E, I, O, U, you have to pronounce it using a glottal stop. And so the premise of this poem, and this is not a collage poem, was that I wanted to write a poem in which every word begins with a vowel or begins with a glottal stop, right? So I collected a whole bunch of words that begin with vowels, and then I wrote the poem. Glottal stop poem. If only Eddie and Irene at once ejected all our emerald apples, and oh, Eddie and Irene, an electronic automobile, unoccupied, except Eddie and Irene accelerating away, away, Eddie and Irene and us abandoned on our asses. Isn't it ironic? After all our esteemed arguments, after all our extreme opinions, Eddie and Irene eating all our appetizing apples, accelerating away and away, offering us enough of an inkling only after accelerating, alacritous and away. Oh, audacious Eddie and Irene ingesting all our expensive apples. Eddie and Irene, oh, and us, eventually, unable in our anger, unable and unalert, I and us abandoned altogether on our extremely unathletic asses. So I'm going to just read two more. Thank you. So I think I mentioned did I mention that I use computer language in some of these poems? I think I probably forgot that. So I did, I work in IT. It's how I make my living. So I'm familiar with things like Linux, which is an operating system. So if you're not familiar with that, which is the operating system, which is kind of the rival to Windows, Microsoft Windows. And so some of these poems make use of code and computer language. The cover of this book actually is a log file. This is a canceled text poem. I don't know how well you can see it, but I took a log file and I canceled some text and I put some colors in it. And I came up with a poem about what else would you expect from a log file, right? About a bug sitting on a log, right? So I'm not going to read that, but I am going to read this one. This is another old poem. It's called Record Out of Range. Find Chan. No find Chan. Fidin, F-D-I-N, Chan. Syntax error, correct and retry. Y-N, N. Find Chan. No find Chan. Index Stu Alpha, 100 records indexed, 200 records indexed, 300 records indexed, 305 records indexed. Find Chan. Dot. The dot indicates that Chan has been found. Right? Display Chan, 0038, Chan. Find record, 0038, record out of range. Find 0038, record out of range. Find Chan, no find Chan. And I will
yes, let's have just one more.
end with one more. Again, this is a large poem. Make a left at the turn in the next century. Keep going until you come to a crook in the road. There'll be a patch of wildflowers on the right, and Godot will be waiting at the gate. Shout hallelujah 3 times. Take 2 aspirin and rest in peace. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Mike. You've shown us new paths for surrealism.
Guess this is all related to surrealism, Dadaism, and Fluxus.